Today, two presidents known for their fiery rhetoric toward each other met in the Oval Office and apparently put their acrimony behind them. Colombia's President Gustavo Petro has long been a critic of President Trump and the U.S. itself.
But Mr. Trump this afternoon praised Petro and did not repeat previous threats of military action. And in a press conference tonight, Petro said the meeting eased tensions between Trump and all of Latin America. Nick Schifrin reports.
Today at the White House, a Colombian president who for decades criticized what he calls American imperialism was all smiles for the man he recently dubbed a would-be king. President Trump greeted Gustavo Petro warmly, offered a personal tour of what he's labeled the Presidential Walk of Fame, and wrote Petro a letter, a great honor, I love Colombia, and inscribed his art of the deal, you are great.
I thought he was terrific. He was very good. He got along great.
Tonight, Petro said the meeting diffused regional tensions.
He gave me a red cap that said, Make America Great Again. And I wrote with a pen and put an S and said, Make America's Great. And that can only be done on the basis of mutual respect.
That is a far cry from months of mutual maliciousness.
Colombia is out of control, and now they have the worst president they've ever had. He's a lunatic who's got a lot of problems, mental problems.
We must respond to defend people's rights, the rights of democracy not to be governed by tyrannies.
He has cocaine mills or cocaine factories. He's not going to be doing it.
So there will be an operation by the U.S.
It sounds good to me.
For us, ICE operates the same way as the Nazi and Italian brigades, the fascists.
But after the U.S.'s, quote, law enforcement action against Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro ended with him in handcuffs, President Trump says there's been a change in tone.
I mean, he's been very nice over the last month or two. He was certainly critical before that, but somehow after the Venezuelan raid, he became very nice. He changed his attitude very much.
What hasn't changed, the Colombian military's desire to combat drug smuggling. For years, they've worked with the U.S. to take steps like this: interdict cocaine from Colombia on the way to the United States. The Trump administration's solution was military, dozens of strikes on alleged drug boats. Petro described that as murder. And his solution, voluntary eradication, letting farmers themselves rip up the root of the problem.
It doesn't interest us. We don't want it because we know there's no future or way forward there for us.
The theory is not wrong. The problem is it's never worked in practice.
Kevin Whitaker was ambassador to Colombia from 2014 until 2019 under Presidents Obama and Trump. He points out that Colombia's cocaine production has grown year over year, and the country now supplies nearly 70% of the world's cocaine.
I mean, a serious flaw in the Petro administration's approach to this entire issue is to completely stop the process of military engagement with these illegal armed groups who are behind the coca trade. A serious approach would be to design a strategy aimed at undercutting the illegal armed groups as a military matter. I think that would be very attractive to the U.S. administration. I also think it could be effective in Colombia.
Whitaker also says that despite historic ties, Petro and the U.S. could cooperate on overlapping goals with the new government of Venezuela. The U.S. has forced that government to stop exporting oil to Cuba, and now, under U.S. pressure, Mexico could also cut off its own supply to Cuba.
It's a failed nation now, and they're not getting any money from Venezuela, and they're not getting any money from anywhere. It's a failed nation. Mexico is going to cease sending them oil. But we are dealing with the Cuban leaders right now.
Since the Cuban Revolution, the country has relied on an outside patron. It first lost the Soviet Union, and now Venezuela.
People have been predicting the end of the Castroid regime in Cuba for many, many years. It's hard to think that this will be the time when it will really make a difference. But petroleum is very important to the economy. And if they lose the flows both from Mexico and from Venezuela, that's going to hurt economically.
And Cuba and the region will remain under enormous U.S. pressure that today brought a former guerrilla fighter to the seat of U.S. power. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Nick Schifrin.
Support journalism you trust. Support PBS News. Donate now, or even better, start a monthly contribution today.